What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Exchange. My name is Tim, doing a solo show today. My co-host Tyler is out sick, but we're going to get into what happened Week 7 college football, all the close games, the upsets, the overtime thrillers. We're going to get into that right now. After what we watched last week, we wanted more this week, and we got it. We're going to start with the Penn State USC game, where USC took a 20-6 halftime lead. Drew Aller, quarterback for Penn State, did have some troubles in the first half, but flipped a switch during halftime and came out firing, bringing Penn State back with the game-tying score, send the game into overtime, and then Penn State took care of business in overtime. Penn State now 6-0, ranked third in the country. How good are the Nittany Lions? This is not a Penn State team that we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing an offense that would strategically move the ball down the field. There wasn't any big plays down the field like consistency. Yeah, they would have some here and there, but that wasn't their identity as an offense. Not the case this year. You got Drew Aller, who's taking control of the offense. You got weapons like Tyler Warren, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. That offensive line led by the senior duos, Nick Dawkins, Sal Wormley. Like, this offense is different, and Penn State fans have been wanting this for a while. The only thing that can get in their way is the defense that got exposed a little bit against the USC offense that seemed to struggle against good opponents like Michigan. But I'm not that worried about it. I think it's just a little mistakes that can clean up here and there. They're very talented defense, and I cannot wait to see what Penn State does for the rest of the season. They do have some challenging games coming up, but we're going to get into those later in the show. But next, we're going to talk about Ohio State and Oregon. I think these two teams went into this game looking identical. It was going to come down to who's going to have that last shot, what defense was going to come up with turnovers, and that's exactly what happened. This came down to the wire. I should have gone to bed, but there's no way I was sleeping without seeing the ending of this game. So, with Michigan taking a little setback with what's going on over there, I don't know what's going on. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have an identity. It's an offense, passing-wise. It looked like Ohio State was primed to take back control of the Big Ten. With all these newcomers, like we said last week, they're not really built to play Big Ten football just yet. The only exception was Oregon. They had the speed to combat the Big Ten style play, and this is exactly what we got. The only thing is, Ohio State is not built like a Big Ten team. They're built like an SEC team. They got receivers galore. Like, I feel like all their starting receivers could be starting wide receiver in the NFL. But yeah, both quarterbacks threw for over 300 yards. Rushing yards, 141 to 155 in favor of the Ducks. Total yards, 467 to 496 in favor of the Ducks. What's troubling for Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes is that since Ryan Day took over, they are 1-7 against top 5 opponents, and they're 0-5 versus Michigan and Oregon. It's a little I know at the end of last year, everyone was calling Ryan Day to get fired or anything like that. That's not the case. There's no way he should get fired for that. I mean, I know it's the game, and Ohio State fans expect them to win the game. But it's just like he's bringing in so many good recruits. He brought in the defensive coordinator that is trying to turn this defense around. He's done a good job. This defense has been way better since he's come along. I'm drawing the blank on the name. I want to say it's something Knowles. But, yeah. Don't get rid of Ryan Day. Like, he's doing a good job there. He's not... The program hasn't dipped. They beat everyone until that last game. And even when they still made the playoffs, and they were a field goal away on New Year's Eve just 2 years ago, going to national championship. So There's no reason to fire Ryan Day. All right, we're going to just talk about the Big Ten in general as a conference. Who's going to take control of it? We got Indiana on top with Oregon, Penn State, Illinois, Nebraska, and Ohio State. I'm going to start with Indiana. They have had a really good season up to this point. I think this is when they take a step back from being on top. They have Nebraska, they got Michigan, they got Ohio State on their schedule still. I don't see them coming out on top on any of those. But still, they got Indiana going in the right direction. It's not their time yet. Things look easiest for the Oregon Ducks, schedule-wise. They just need to stay healthy, stay focused. The toughest games they have, I believe, is Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They should take care of business, and I think those are the teams that would give them the most trouble. Next up, we have Penn State. They'll be tested the next 2 weeks with Wisconsin and Ohio State. Wisconsin surprises me sometimes with games that I think there's no way they're going to win. It's like they don't have an offense. And then they put up 40-plus points. And I'm like, I can't figure them out. I don't know if they'll be able to get through both of those games with Penn State. Wisconsin and Ohio State. I don't know. They're going to lose one of them. And I think it's going to be the Ohio State game. Illinois holds the tiebreaker over the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Illinois also has 2 teams coming in that can make or break their season, and that's Michigan and Oregon. Actually, I don't think Michigan's going to put up too much of a fight against Illinois. Illinois' got the defense to shut that running game down, and they don't have a passing game. Next up, we got Ohio State. Is, of course, nowhere out of this race. I don't see them losing another game. I see them having trouble with a few games, but then typical Ohio State fashion, they struggle in the first half, turn it on in the second half, and they blow people out by 30-plus points. Which, in that case, would mean we would get another rematch with Oregon and Ohio State for the Big Ten Championship, and I would have no problem with that. That game had everything that you wanted with scoring, big plays, defensive, I wouldn't say defensive stops. I mean, yeah, they did, but it wasn't like consistently throughout the game where we see defensive stops. Moving out of the Big Ten, we're going to get into Alabama having trouble again against another unranked opponent with South Carolina. I'm not really sure what's going on in Tuscaloosa with Alabama Crimson Tide. I believe it's their own fault. I think they keep shooting themselves in the foot. They keep on getting in their own way. They bail opponents out with stupid penalties. They keep drives alive. If South Carolina didn't fumble 3 times during that game, South Carolina wins that game. No doubt. So they just need to buckle down, fundamentals. Football is a physical game, but it's more mental than people think. And you just have to stay disciplined, stay disciplined. Blah, blah, blah. Stay disciplined. All right, next up, Red River Rivalry. These 3 words make any college football fan excited. Texas, Oklahoma, used to be the Big 12. Now they're both in the SEC. Who's going to take dominance control of the newcomers? And it is, obviously, Texas. Texas has a shot of taking full control of the SEC. They will have a shot this coming up week when they take on the Goliath, Georgia. The Longhorns will now have their toughest test coming up. And I want to get into this a little bit because Georgia is not the Georgia that we've known for the last 3 to 5 years. Different team. They're a little unpredictable on what they're going to come out. So Carson Beck, returning after last year, I think was a little bit of a mistake for his future-wise. Not for Georgia and what he wanted to accomplish there, because I thought his draft stock was a lot higher at the end of last year. This year, I think it's going to take a little bit of a dip. So, just Carson Beck's perspective, future-wise, I thought it was a bad idea. All right, but our last game of the show that we're going to talk about is the overtime thriller that we had with LSU and Ole Miss. Jackson Dart tried to do it all. Lane Kiffin tried to pull out all the stops. Just wasn't enough. Brian Kelly and that LSU offense is too fast. Even their defense was flying around. That was surprising. Usually their defense is A little bit of struggling against good teams like Ole Miss. Not the case here. They put the stop in. Um, Ole Miss's defense really surprised me with just leaving guys wide open, which was their kryptonite for that game. Obviously, you saw the overtime score for LSU to win the game. It did not look pretty for Ole Miss, and it looked promising for LSU. It seems like they have what it takes. Like, they're taking a step. Like, they had struggles early on in the season. Now they're starting to build off those mistakes and learning from them and getting things underway and getting things rolling. Who impressed me the most this weekend? And number one, Ashton Denty. With his continued dominance on the field, he went 31 carries for 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 passing, 1 rush. So that puts Genty over 1,200 yards on the season with 18 touchdowns. He leads the nation in both those categories, in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. Another one, Kansas State's rushing defense. They held Colorado to negative 29 rushing yards. They did give up 388 passing yards, but that's going to happen when you make a team one-dimensional, and a team like Colorado, Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, who left the game with an injury, so hope everything's all right with Travis Hunter. Hell of a player, but yeah, Colorado is not going to win a game just throwing the ball. Who let me down? The Utah Utes. Cam Rising out for the season with another injury, his 7th year in college football, and I think he's only completed 2 of them healthy. So it looks like Isaac Wilson going to come back in. I can't remember his name right now. I wouldn't say Isaac Wilson, but that seems like the quarterback for Michigan right now, who I was just discussing before taping this. Yeah, they really let me down. With the Big 12 thinning out, with Oklahoma and Texas going, it looked like Utah was in a big prime position to take over that conference. They just needed to get over Kansas State, which they've done before. They needed to get over other opponents that they've literally done continuously. But they just keep falling short this year. Another team that let me down was Washington. After what I saw, what they did to Michigan, I thought, okay, Washington, like, you're going to come in here, you're going to compete with the Big Ten teams. After the big fallout, losing all the players from the championship game roster. Then they give up 40 points to Iowa. 40 points to Iowa, who is known for just defense. They're not known for their offense. 40 points. So, Washington let me down. Definitely. Next, I really wish Tyler was here. He's been waiting for this, but we're going to get into the Hiesman discussion a little bit. I'm going to give you my top 5. A little bit of dark horses in there, and then some obvious choices. So we're going to start with number 1, Ashton Genty. He's got to be number 1, right? He's number 1 on everyone's board right now to winning the Hiesman, and with reason. He's, like I said, over 1,200 yards rushing, 9.9 yards per carry, 208 rushing yards per game. 208 per game, with 18 total touchdowns. Number 2, Dylan Gabriel, quarterback for Oregon. His touchdown interception ratio is 13-3, almost 1,800 yards passing, 76% completion rating, 103 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. It's hard to compete with that. The only reason I don't have Cam Ward above him is just because the all-around effect that Dylan Gabriel has on his team. Cam Ward does have an effect on his team, but it's more, he's got a lot around him. But yeah, Cam Ward, number 3, 20-5 touchdown interception ratio, 2,200 yards, 69% completion rating, 3 rushing touchdowns. All right, here's where it gets a little different with my list. Number 4, I have Caleb Johnson, the running back for Iowa. He's got 937 rushing yards, 7.9 per carry, 12 touchdowns, and he's averaging 156 rushing yards per game. I know he's got a long shot to win, especially with Denty up there. Like, come on. Caleb Johnson, though, I got to put him up there, especially with that offense, like I just said, not known for scoring points or putting up yards. And here Caleb Johnson is saying, no, watch me. Number 5, Kyle McCord, quarterback for Syracuse. I got him in my top 5. He's 17-6 touchdown interception ratio, 1,800 yards, 64 completion rating, averaging 362 yards a game. Got to put him in my top 5 just for those reasons. I was going to get in the top 25 a little bit. I'm just going to go like the top 5: Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, or Georgia. Was I surprised to see Ohio State only go down and still be in the top 4? Yes. Am I okay with it though? Yes. Like I said, those two teams were identical. It was a 1-point loss. You really didn't see a decline in talent and being one of the best teams. I think they're definitely one of the top 4 teams in the country. And you got to feel bad for teams like Miami, Alabama, LSU, Iowa State, and Clemson, who round out the top 10, because the only team I see falling out of that is Penn State, and they all have to fight for that top 4 to get that first round bye. Now, luckily, 12-team playoff, a lot of these teams that are up here are going to make the playoffs. Hopefully. Notre Dame went down to number 12. They were tied with 11th, so technically they were 12th last week. So not a big change there. Texas A&M 14th. I like what they're doing. Boise State. I'm big. Tyler's got me looking at Boise State. I know I just pointed to him. He ain't here. He's usually over here. But he's got me big on Boise State this year. Indiana, this is their last week in the top 25, unfortunately. Ole Miss down to 18. Not surprised. SMU is the one that I thought should have been higher. Not by much, though. I think they should be where Ole Miss is, and Ole Miss should be where SMU is. SMU is 21st, Ole Miss is 18th. I think they should be flopped. Illinois 22, Army 23, Michigan 24, and Navy 25. Army, Navy in the top 25. That has not happened since, October 3rd of 1960. That has not happened. And both of them have not been undefeated at this point of the season since 1945. So, big shout outs to Army and Navy. I cannot wait till they play at the end of the season. It's going to be one of the better games that they've had in a while. Getting on to the picks. Last week, I went 9-3. Tyler went 8-4. So pretty good, solid week for both of us. Starting out with Oregon and Purdue. Obviously, I'm going to take Oregon here. Purdue can't stop anyone from scoring, and Oregon loves to score. Oklahoma State, BYU. I got Oklahoma State with the upset here. I just think Oklahoma State matches up pretty well against BYU, and I think it tilts in favor of the Cowboys. So I got Oklahoma State upsetting BYU. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. This one, Notre Dame fans are a little bit weary about because we saw what Georgia Tech did to Florida State, and then in counter, we've seen what a lot of teams have done to Florida State. So I don't know where the measurement is there, but Georgia Tech is not a team to sleep on, and Notre Dame has been caught sleeping once on a team and ended up losing that game. I do have Notre Dame coming out on top, though. Nebraska versus Indiana. This is where I said, like, Indiana, this is their last week being in the top 25. I think Nebraska goes into Indiana and takes the upset. Virginia and Clemson. I got Clemson. Auburn, Missouri. I got Missouri. Miami and Louisville, close game, but I do have Miami coming out on top. South Carolina versus Oklahoma. I got Oklahoma. Michigan versus Illinois. I'm sorry, Tyler. You're not here. I wish you were here so you can hear me say this. Go Fighting Illini. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. I got Texas A&M. They're on a roll right now. LSU versus Arkansas. I got LSU. UCF versus Iowa State. Big on Iowa State this year, so I got to keep rolling with them. Iowa State. Kansas State versus West Virginia. I got West Virginia. This is another one where, like, West Virginia has shown, like the Miami game. West Virginia should have won that game. Kansas State, they've shown some struggles And I think this is where they get exposed again. I got West Virginia winning at home against Kansas State. SMU versus Stanford. We all saw what happened to Stanford last week with Notre Dame. They ain't bouncing back this week with SMU. SMU's a very good football team right now, going on the road, taking a win from Stanford. All right, the two highlighted games for the weekend, Alabama and Tennessee, might come as a shock to y'all. I know it comes as a shock to Tyler. I'm taking Bama. Tennessee has struggled offensively the last few weeks, and going against Alabama team who has a very good defense, as long as they don't make mistakes like they've been doing, Alabama wins this game, and I think Kalen DeBoer is going to fix those problems right now, or this week, leading into this game. So, yeah, give me Alabama. Georgia versus Texas. This is at Texas, and that is the moving point. This crowd is going to be electric. Georgia's not going to know they're not going to be able to hear the call. They're not going to be able to stay disciplined, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Texas has the offense. They have the defense. You saw what they did to Oklahoma. This is the best team in the country. And the best team in the country does not lose. So, Texas over Georgia. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this show. If you haven't already, go and like and subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already, go and check out our Facebook page. The link for that will be in the description. Shout out to our sponsor, Drake Publishing. His link will also be in the description, so go check him out. And stay tuned for next episode. We're going to be talking NFL. Well, not work. I'm going to be talking about the NFL, what happened on last week with my Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Check out for that, and we will see you then. I will see you then.